Well, good afternoon and good evening, and also good morning to our colleagues joining us in the eastern seaboard of North America as well. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Derek Vaughan. It's my pleasure to host this financial services roundtable for Valiantis, part of the Valiantis Enterprise Days. Greatly appreciate everyone joining us today and look forward to the lively debate during the next hour. So just a couple of housekeeping points for everyone. All the participants are on mute apart from the panelists that we have with us today. Greatly appreciate your time and being able to join us on this session. The session is being recorded today. We will be also having questions from the audience. If you've got the GoToWebinar control panel up on your screen, you'll notice there's a tab, a little tab on there saying questions. If you click down on the arrow on that, it will open up the questions. You can ask questions to the panelists we have joining us today. So greatly appreciate your time with joining us. At the very end of the session today, there will be a short 3-question questionnaire that we'll be asking just about how you've experienced the event today, what other events you might like to attend, and also lastly, if you have any further questions for the audience regarding the topics that we've covered. So we've got a busy agenda. We've only got 1 hour, but as I say, we've got the welcome comments now, and then we're going to be moving quickly on to the panel question, where we've got half an hour of discussion between our panel of panelists today. And thank you very much for them for giving up their time to join with us today. I'll do their introductions in one moment. As I said, after we've done the panel discussion, we'll have a few minutes, so we've got about 10 minutes allocated, possibly a bit longer, to answer your questions coming through on the questions prompt on this session today. So greatly appreciate any questions that you'd like to put on there. They'll be passed on to us as we go through the session. If you have any closing remarks or questions after the session, please feel free to contact one of our colleagues or respond to the video. The video is going to be available to download, so please feel free to share it with your colleagues after the event. They'll obviously need to register to be able to download it, but that'll be available also after the event for yourself and to share with your colleagues. So many thanks for that. So I'd like to just open up, and I'm going to go over to introductions to our panelists. Unfortunately, one of our panelists hasn't been able to make it in today, so just the 4 of us today. So firstly, I'm going to go and go over to Radu to introduce himself to the audience. Radu?
Hi, thank you, and thanks for the invitation. Appreciate it. Radu Burghela, I'm head of IT for European Banking Authority. I've been doing IT and leadership roles for over 20 years, private sector mostly, banking, insurance, startups, and plenty experience with transformation, and enjoying still a lot of it with the EBA now. Thanks.
Great, thanks very much, Radu. Unfortunately, Peter hasn't been able to make it. I'm not sure his events, and he's trying now. I think he's got some technical difficulties in getting access to the call, so he may join us shortly afterwards. So I'm just going to hand over to another colleague. So Laura, would you like to provide us an introduction?
Yes, of course. My name is Laura Robertson. I'm Vice President of Automation and Process Engineering at PaySafe Group. I've originally got an investment banking background of about 10 years in operational roles and moved into project and program management after the credit crisis. I've actually been running and leading automation programs now since 2015. I got exposure to that whilst I was contracting at Deloitte and was putting together business cases. They were trialing automation software at the time with UiPath, and put together business cases to do it at scale using Automation Anywhere. I really caught the bug for automation after that, so I went ahead and implemented it in the public sector, at an investment bank as well, and then more recently at consultancies. And in this current role, I've been spending my time building up a centre of excellence to do automation at scale and couple it with other human innovations and human ways of processing, as well as together with technology. I'm really excited for the discussion.
Good stuff. Thanks, Laura. It's great to have you join us. Lastly, our last colleague on the call now is Krishnan. Krishnan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Derek. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to as well. So my name is Krishna. Krishna Kumar. I am predominantly a technology person. I had a long history within financial services. I started my career within financial services as a hands-on developer, and then further on moved on to assume multiple leadership positions, which include running a large IT operational teams as well, covering the front to back office systems. And I also had rich experience in running cloud engineering and the cloud transformation program. I had a very long career within M&G Investments, but now I'm currently with a large investment bank. Thank you.
Excellent.
Looking forward to the discussion.
Krishnan, thanks very much for joining us. And yeah, congratulations on your new role, by the way. Apologies about that, and greatly appreciate if you're taking the time to join us today, and thank you for that. So yeah, I mean, thank you all for the panelists. Apologies, I say Peter Steele seems to be having a few technical problems. So yeah, hopefully he can join us in a short while. What we'll do now is that I'm going to move on to just introduce the panel session today. And so greatly appreciate everyone's time in sort of participating. The purpose of the roundtable, and hopefully many of you would have had the opportunity to join the session on Tuesday, the 1st of December from the Bank of England, talking about their journey into Agile and agility. And as a very traditional organisation, we're very pleased to have been working with them as they've been launching a major transformation programme, both around Agile in the bank, but also part of the RT2 program as well, which is a major engineering project they've got, a systems engineering project. The thing for all our customers is obviously the increasing complexity of business models in the financial services industry and globally, and globalization is making IT activities within financial services a very important task, and also I'd say go wider into the operations, so both the technology and operations side of the financial services industry. We're seeing lots of complexity, both from a regulatory perspective and from a strategy and organizational perspective. You know, as the financial services industry is pivoting now around the Agile theme and is looking to work more closely and collaboratively, both internally and across the organization, Agile methods and tools are being used more and more widely. And IT is part of that orchestration of the organization. So what are CIOs and CTOs? We've got a great group of panelists with us today. So what are CIOs and CTOs and leaders in financial services IT? How are they helping their organizations navigate these increasing demands and the minefield of regulation that's happening on a worldwide basis? Well, let's hear from our panelists on how they've successfully leveraged their experience and their expertise in methods and tools and to ensure that their organizations are creating value. So first question I had from for the team is really with regards to what have they been seeing over the last year, 12 months, etc. Have they been seeing in terms of the industry forces that are being changing the way that the pressures that have been put onto the IT, and how has that been affecting decision making within IT? I suppose from a regulatory perspective and as a regulatory authority, Radu, this is something you must be working with. What are your thoughts about the key industry drivers and that are going on at the moment?
Thanks. So I'd say not not much changed actually. The situation, as one of my favorite speakers and presenters, Simon Ward, was saying, situation normal, everything must change. So basically, it's still the same themes, the same situation. You have to do digital transformation. It's been a common topic for a while, but it's still present. We at EBA, we're still going through the digital transformation journey. Probably we should have started earlier, but we are doing it now, and I think that's something that everybody has to go through. It is a major topic because it's not just about technology. Actually, the technology part is the less complicated. It's about reinventing business models. It's about culture. It's about leadership. It's about morphing into something else. It's about understanding your market, your customers, your competitors, your mission. What do you need to achieve, etc. And this drives a lot. Your ability to survive and be successful as an organization. So if you think of agility and the ability to react, which was rather crucial this year in the pandemic, this is not just for a pandemic. You should be able to get snappy with the reaction if your competitor introduces a new product, if there's a change in the regulation, if you have to be able as an organization to move your cycle times from years into months into days. I think that's last crisis in 2008. We've seen organizations moving from yearly cycles into quarterly. Quarterly was the new yearly. Now I think it's these day and age, you have to have an organization built with the digital ability to move on a daily basis. Otherwise, it's very, very difficult for you to survive. In our situation, we are still to get there. As regulators, we're still counting on organizations submitting numbers and giving us information and data, sometimes with months difference. So I think in our sector, it's going to be very important that the flow of data, which allows for informed decision making, for good policy, is getting up to speed with the realities of the market and realities of the what's happening in the economy. So that's very, very much probably commonsensical, and everybody's probably experienced this. What I would say is being a very novel, very disruptive new force is being privacy, and the way that privacy managed to shape new boundaries, new territories. 2 years ago, I didn't know what digital sovereignty is. Now I know. There's an Atlantic wall being built between USA and Europe. There's a very, very important boundaries that you have to be aware of in terms of regulation and regulation domains. This applies to cloud, this applies to your contractors, your supply chains, applies to everything. And organizations should really, really look carefully into that and understand them profoundly. This is not somebody's job in legal or procurement. This is something that shapes how your ecosystem of partners, computing solutions is gonna be built up. Sorry if I was maybe blasting two instead of one topics.
No, that's a great one. I mean, information security, privacy, cybercrime, are particularly affecting all of, I mean, obviously retail industry at this time of year, but obviously from a financial services industry perspective, it's a clear one, as well as anti-money laundering and know your customer as well. I mean, those efforts as well in terms of fraud and not supporting organizations that we wouldn't want to support. I suppose it's worth maybe Krishnan, from a investment industry perspective, information security, privacy, that's one of the key things, and as Radu mentioned, sovereignty, where does the data belong? What are your thoughts from the investment industry? What have been the key influences over this past year?
Yeah, thank you, Derek. Yeah, my thoughts are, I'm going to start similar to Radu, because nothing has changed. The industry seems to be the same, but except the fact that the problems which all existed in the previous world has become more important, more prominent in the coming days, and it's just the same problem in a different scale and a different time scale. In my view, some of the key challenges of the financial services, especially investment management and asset management and the investment banking, are increased regulatory focus and pressure on cost for the fund management, increased demand from the customers, the ability to meet the customers' demand with new technologies, and plus the the various digital disruptions that are happening around us. So those are the three kind of major factors, in my opinion, is influencing the financial services industry. For example, increased regulatory pressure on more transparent reporting to them for all the compliance organization, more transparent reporting to the customers means there is an increase on the workload and volumes on the operational team that kind of produces the reports. And customers have become so sophisticated as well. They need to have their they expect it's not they take it for granted that real-time access to their kind of investment products and performance 24/7. And the third factor is the kind of the digital transformation that is happening all around us, is impacting the kind of entire investment life cycle. So right from onboarding new customers to post-sale service to investment management to client reporting, all these digital technologies is having an acting as an disruptor. So what does it mean to IT? IT always has been under pressure, reduce cost, and react much more quicker. So the problems that the industry is facing hasn't changed. Regulatory pressure has always been there. Cost pressure has always been there. Digital disruption, maybe yes, but it has come back in a new form. So IT has got a big challenge in hand. How do we react quickly when our most of the business process still kind of run in the legacy infrastructure, and the digital disruption is causing we are forced to enable access through new means. How do we integrate the new and the old world? Should we rewrite the old legacy core systems, or should we outsource it? So these are all some of the challenges that the financial services IT is facing at the moment.
Oh, thanks, Krishnan. And I think you pick on a good point, and I've already seen a question coming through about digital disruption and innovation, so that we can pick that up in the Q&A section afterwards. But yeah, no, I think we've covered a broad spectrum of industry challenges that are coming through there. I'm hoping your suggestion regarding the importance of additional regulatory reporting wasn't really a dig at the European Banking Authority, given they're on the call with us today. So, but I'm sure there are lots of other ones we can look at in terms of other regulators here in the UK and Europe as well. And our colleagues, obviously, SEC colleagues in North America. Yeah, regulators are always one I remember from my career when I did some work at ABN AMRO Bank, which was operating both out of UK, mainland Europe, and North America and South America. The regulatory frameworks across all the countries are always slightly different and unusual in many circumstances. That are, I think, I suppose that the question would, and perhaps invite Laura to have a chat in. I mean, critical challenges. I mean, we talked about digital disruptors. We talked about other market forces within financial services. But Laura, what are your thoughts about some of the critical challenges over the past year for actual IT itself? You're obviously working very much in the payments industry, but is there anything there you want to share with us around those critical challenges?
Yes, so I would say it is that we have faced three core challenges. One of them is being able to manage digital transformation remotely in this new world order we're now living in. Gone are the days where teams traveled globally to run a process discovery workshop. Everything has to be done online now. And when you're online 100% of the time. And you need to take account of that with people's productivity, their day-to-day as well. And you need to give them the time to be able to be productive in what they're doing as part of their day-to-day. So I had a very concerted effort to be able to run those sessions using brainstorming technology, but also trim down the time that you spend with people. If you've got a 60-minute session, trim it down to 45 minutes so that you can keep it as punchy, much like an agile methodology, really, so you can keep it as iterative as possible. And I very much agreed with what Radu was saying. It's almost like globally now, we've gone away from being able to plan 3 to 5 years ahead even. And it's almost like the whole world is in this 2-week iterative cycle of planning and replanning and can I have a client engagement on this day? Or no, I'm locked down again, I can't. And it's like the whole world's become this kind of 2-week life cycle. That's certainly what it feels like to me. So that's one challenge that we've faced. Another one is the fact that we're now online so much more. There's so many more payments being done online. If you look at the stats 10 years ago, 6 out of 10 payments were done using cash. Now it's 3 out of 10. And you face then challenges managing the IT estate and infrastructure with the increased volumes that causes and the potential for the increased recruitment needs. So we've spent a lot of time planning how we onboard people more effectively, potentially using some of the automation technology we've already implemented, but also looking at how you make that employee onboarding experience more pleasurable. People can't have hours and hours of face-to-face training anymore. So how do we repurpose some of the tech that we've built to facilitate that a lot more easily and deal with that challenge that everybody is currently remote? And then the final one is the fact that my business analysts cannot go and sit side by side with the business anymore because they're not there. So we've had a concerted effort looking into how you use process discovery, process mining tools to be able to facilitate that and give a more scientific view of what's actually happening in a process. And for anybody who's not clear, process mining tools look at how you use data extractors to really assess what's actually going on in a process across ERP systems. And process discovery is a bit more in depth. It's a piece of kit that you can put onto a desktop for a couple of weeks, and that looks across all of the applications that are being used as part of a process. So we've had to take a lot more of a scientific view and a lot more of in some ways, a more technical view of how you map out and manage those processes in order to be able to change them and improve them.
Laura, I mean, that's like music to my ears. I mean, I was sort of back in the 80s doing Lean and Six Sigma. So all the sort of data analysis tools you're talking about really bring home to me that, the facts and data are the core of doing any sort of re-engineering work like that. And as you say, there are some great tools out there from a process mining, process data insight perspective. And I suppose data is a theme we should think about in terms of challenges. I mean, there was another thing I wanted to pick up with you is you talked about onboarding staff. And I didn't know whether anyone, now we're in the digital age, what about onboarding customers? and both from a B2B and a B2C perspective. I mean, that has to be now a key challenge for IT organizations, is how do we make those online experiences for our customers now, because obviously, you know, they may not be coming into branches, or they may not be meeting with IFAs, etc., things like that. How do we make those experiences? I'm going to sort of come over to Krishna, and you know, in terms of challenges for IT, I mean, you talked about a number of things in terms of the industry pressures, regulatory pressures, but what are you seeing in the challenges in the IT space as well? Is it similar to Laura, or are there others?
I think, okay, so the IT challenge, you know, what I find, you know, especially related to the financial services IT is, you know, what used to be a kind of a very dirty term has now become a very all of a sudden the favorite term. You know, the sentiments around it has changed quite a lot. If people are guessing what I'm talking about, is the public cloud adoption. You know, 3 or 4 years back, you know, financial services IT, you know, were very, very reluctant to go on to the, you know, public cloud platform. So cloud adoption, but the sentiments has changed a lot. Cloud adoption seems to be the favorable topic across, not just across the financial services organization, but, you know, across you know, any other industry. But I'm, you know, surprised by the speed in which every single financial services organization are now having a cloud transformation program as part of their roadmap of program. Partly because, you know, it enables, you know, quick you know, digital transformation. So that's one of the reasons. But the adoption of the public cloud brings its own challenges. It's not just the case of, you know, okay, now we are moving from our on-premise on to move everything onto some other's platform. It requires a fundamental mind shift in which the entire IT department is going to go on delivering things. We can't just be doing, you know, the old roles and responsibilities in the new world. We need to transform, you know, the operating model, which many organizations are still, you know, trying to come to terms with. Okay, how do we? I did like in this way. How do I do it in the new way? And the skill sets, you know, where do we find these skill sets for, you know, the cloud opens up. You know, there are only so many cloud engineers you can find it from the market. So how do you transform your internal, what are you going to do with your internal workforce? You know, you need to give them a chance, and you need to go through a kind of a training program to retrain into the kind of the new skills, so that they'll be able to provide value in the long term. And one of the other mindset is, okay, moving to cloud is cheaper, and it is not. You know, any organizations making a kind of a decision to say, okay, moving to public cloud will be a lot more cheaper than running my own data center, they will be waiting for a hard reality, because, you know, there's an element of, you know, new work, you know, new operating model and new way of doing things. And, you know, they will go through a learning curve of having a huge bill landing in the table of, you know, CIOs and CTOs before they wake up, and then they go through the kind of the cost optimization program. So skill set, cost, operating model, and the kind of the last one is, it's like opening the bottle of, you know, sweet containers. Cloud gives you a lots and lots of kind of technologies which makes the digital disruption possible, like AI, machine language, data science, Internet of Things. But if we are not getting our basics right in those kind of new technology, it will come back to bite us in the kind of long term. So you know, we need to react quickly, but at the same time, you know, we need to be very careful in taking the first few steps, get the basics right, and then, you know, try to start building onto your kind of new world. So I would say, you know, these are all some of the challenges in my view.
I can see, Christian, that, I mean, obviously you can see their agility, as you mentioned, several of the topics there, you know, helping to create the opportunity for agility. And we'll come back to that disruptor thing again, you know, cloud being able to provide more agility and those more options, and therefore the disruption. And as Laura talked about, you know, having those tools in place that allow them to be more agile, to work in a different way across the organization, and be able to orchestrate things remotely as well. So I think there's a lot of discussion around those agile tools and using agile and agility. I wanted to pause on something there, because you brought up a great topic about cloud and also about data as well. And I know from our work with the European Banking Authority, there's a lot of work there around data. They're obviously looking at a lot of data sets. And actually, Radu, at your very beginning of you talked about having to learn about sovereignty and stuff like that. But I know there's a lot of interest around data and data sovereignty. I didn't know whether you wanted to just mention anything about that now, or we can move on to one of the other topics.
I mean, data is the most important thing we have at TBA. This is without doubt. We are also in a very privileged position where we can harvest, we can define the data that we need in order to work. So we can specify data that it needs to be then provided to us and collected. And we've been making a huge investment to make sure that we build a platform for the future, which is moving our insight from the significant institutions to the entire banking population in Europe. This is a very large program over 5 years to build the platform that allows us to do this with high degree of automation, a very modern way, using master data management, being able to work with very sophisticated data sets of, you know, over 65,000 data points in a single set, with very large degrees of complexity in terms of the type of data that we work with. Some can describe it like being a bit of a, you know, like an ocean. It can have a huge surface, and sometimes the cardinality is low. Cardinality can be also huge, and you have the depth of 11 kilometers sometimes, and you have to have tooling that allows you to go and you know, basically in Jacques-Yves Cousteau terms, send a submarine in that 11-kilometer deep ocean and harvest what you need. So it's very complicated, very challenging. My team is doing an amazing job with this. Challenges of data are, again, like mentioned before, with the digital transformation, and I fully agree with what Chris said, is like cloud is the bedrock for it. You cannot do big data, you cannot do tons of scale processing and integration and publishing and making it available across platforms to people wherever they are without cloud. So this is like a must. It's a fundamental thing that I think everybody needs to get on board with. If anybody had any doubts until now, I think it is the reality these days. As Chris said, public cloud, it's no longer a dirty thing. And there's now very good solutions to have private clouds nested in public clouds, and you can have excellent technology controls to make sure that you protect data in a proportionate way, in a security following the business need and supporting the business case model, instead of using the old paradigms of defending the fort. So it evolved significantly, but still technology is the easy way. I think is the easy part of this. The critical, difficult part of digital transformation is, as Krish was talking about, you know, operating model. So moving away from, it's not just about, you know, where the servers are, right? It's about IT also being honest about their role and doing a transition from being a technology function to being a broker of digital. Digital needs to get into the DNA of everybody in the organization. It needs to be sort of the you know, like in the cartoons, the green substance that is injected into the hero and makes it, you know, a different superhero. That's digital and needs to get into the DNA of the organization. IT needs to shift from being somebody who supplies technology to somebody who just uses technology to have educated discussions, elevated discussions about business. So digital transformation also entails that IT shouldn't be anymore the thought leader of what can be done in the business with technology. This is something that needs to spring from the leadership, and this is something that needs to be embedded, needs to get to the point where business is breathing digital, so that it gets to the point of making a different business model, different decisions, etc. For us, it was really important to have an IT strategy where actually it's a business strategy now. Our IT strategy talks about having EBA as a digital agency, but the reality is it's not about the technology a lot. It's more about the morphing of capabilities into the entire agency. So data is the lifeblood of what we do. We're not a very big organization. We're a 200 people organization. We have, but the data that we have, it's so rich, and we are so privileged to be able to work with this. We are working to find the new generation of solutions for analytics and dissemination, and also making sure that we can leverage the capabilities that we have internally with an ecosystem of partners, central banks, other institutions, so that we open up the data. So value comes a lot more from the usage, and this is very important in collecting and harnessing the value. We are in a very fortunate position also because we are not competing with others. We don't have to keep data from them. We are actually successful when others use our data. So that is very useful because we can be collaborative instead of competitive with others. But it is for us just the beginning of the journey. We've been investing in this platform for about 3 years. It's a 5-year program. We're already 2/3 there. We're harnessing a lot of benefits, but it's such a huge transformative opportunity to use data and become a data-driven organization.
That's really great. I mean, it's a great story about your journey, and I'm actually, one of the things I'm going to pick up in a minute, but a couple of things I heard there, I mean, particularly about value as well. I mean, because from an agile perspective, like releasing value more quickly is a really key concept. So it's great to hear that although we weren't specifically talking about agile, we were talking about the value being created through it. And as you say, your success is about people using your data. I think I'm going to come back to Laura, because there's something there in terms of the journey that you've plotted out. And one of the things that I wanted to come to was, you know, in navigating the past year, and Laura, in sort of, particularly in the payments industry, where you've gone from, like, you know, that to the high volumes that you've gone for, and everything, the remote working that people have gone through. You know, how have you navigated those challenges over the past year? So what have you learned, and what have you done differently to help you navigate the different changes over the past year?
Yeah, I mean, there's always lots of learnings. I've pulled out 4 particular learnings for my particular remit, which is robotics process automation. There is definitely a concerted move away now, thankfully, from the hype and thinking that RPA is a strategy. It's not. You need to couple it with other interventions, be that technological interventions, be that human interventions. It's not a standalone piece. And in line with that, you also need to be thinking about what metrics you're measuring it against. So one of the key learnings has been, you have strategic initiatives like BPM, KPI mapping initiatives. They're typically large pieces of work, but even for the smallest automation, even if you're just starting out to develop a bot, you need to be thinking about what KPIs that should be measured against. That's the first key learning. The second one is Kanban is not a way to plan a large automation program. So you need to be using, obviously we're using a lot of online tools now. You can't go up to a whiteboard and move your post-its around for to be done, in progress and done. So, you laterally move to apps like Trello, but that's not enough to be able to manage a large program of over 30 bots. So we've definitely gone back to basics and we've started using Jira. And also obviously use Jira to upload your documents as a repository. You can put your test plans in there, but also specifically for automation, it's making sure that you couple it with ServiceNow as a tool. For example, for automation, you need to know your system dependencies. If that system is down or you're having changes in it, and the bot is reliant on that system, it just falls over. So it's going back to basics of using Jira in the right way. And then in line with that, working in a fintech, it's naturally tech first. Everybody gets very excited, very enthusiastic about the bots that we have, wants to make continuous improvements to them, but actually you need the right rigor and governance around that. So it's making sure that tickets are raised in Jira as well if there are requirements to change, because if that's a large development piece of work, then your return on investment of that particular automation or bot will quickly dwindle if you keep iterating and iterating and don't have the right governance structure in place. So that's another key learning. And the final one then is being in a tech first culture. Is thinking it's about, again, back to basics, it's about Lean Six Sigma, and it's encouraging people in the Centre of Excellence and in the teams to think about root cause of issues. So I want to put a bit of technology on, but actually what's the root cause of this issue? So I sent the operational leads on some of the operational leads on Greenbelt training, and that encourages them then to think, well, I want this piece of kit, but actually, could I re-engineer this bit, or could I do a bit of training in the team to increase the throughput and the productivity within that process? So they're the four key learnings. It's back to basics with Jira, looking at things not just from a pure tech standpoint, and using RPA as a suite of digital innovation tools.
Thanks, Laura. I mean, that's a great snapshot. And I love the fact that you're getting really down into the technology bit. And as you say, especially in a fintech, it's like everyone wants to have a go with the toys, etc. I'm going to come back to Radu. I mean, you talked about your journey and navigating your journey. I mean, from your perspective, what are the things that you've learned over the last year? I mean, because I know you've had the move out of London to Paris. You've got obviously what's happening in terms of world banking in a pandemic environment, your own team having to work remotely. There must have been masses of things going on, but what are the key lessons for you over the last year,
Radu? Yeah, I mean that's very important, right? Because in the end, it's what you learned. We learned that it's possible to do transformation while cruising. So we had to leave London and move across to Paris, and this was already a crisis situation for us, right? Because we had to relocate 200 people, families, plus the entire infrastructure, data centers, etc., and doing all this without getting funding all the way to October 2018. To be in Paris in March 2019, it is crisis mode. So it made people scream. But you learn that you can do transformation while cruising. So there is you have it in you. I mean, you just have to find the right partners, to listen to your teams, to seek learnings from others in the industry, in your community. For us, it was very supportive to talk to other agencies who were going through similar experiences. So actually, what we ended up in doing was to move from traditional data center on, traditional hosting to community cloud, and we did this while moving to Paris. And we started our cloud journey because of a crisis. So one of the learnings for us was that it is possible. You can transform while cruising with less budget, under significant pressure to break or fail, but it's doable. Another thing is that you should use probably your peace time, right? You should get ready. Don't postpone going digital. I wish we would have been already, when the pandemic hit, we would have been with some of our elements far more advanced, far more ready. Because you should be ready all the time. I saw a comment on the chat, and somebody was asking, well, why just be reactive? Why not you be disruptor? If I may, can I really comment? Yeah,
no, I mean, that's fine. I think we're going to pick that in the Q&A.
Or we can leave it for the later. Yeah. So you need to be ready, and not just ready to react, as said. Also ready to innovate, ready to disrupt, ready to do things differently. Another thing that I learned is that these gaming headsets are really good for.
Okay.
Yeah, they're just amazing. The ones that cover the whole earlobe, that just, you cannot live without them now. So
I can see we're all sat here with our headsets on, so I think that's a great one. I like that.
Maybe the best one that I can give.
Yeah, I suppose the contrast there is something that's going around on social media. Like, is the comment about everyone. The most quoted comment this year is like, "Oh, you're on mute." As everyone's talking. So. But what I suppose I'll come back to Krishnan then, and obviously, I mean, Krishnan, you were talking about some of the changes of moving to the cloud and etc. things. But what are the things that you've learned, obviously, this year, in the terms of how you've navigated this year, and you're going to take forward into next year? What may be the thing you've learned? I'm going to we've got timing, so I'm going to ask for one thing because I'm going to have to move on. So what's the one thing you've learned this year, apart from a good headset?
Right. Okay. Yeah. I think one of the early things we faced up just when we are into the lockdown was to have the need to have a hot house. To organize a hot house to come up with a solution for one of our programs. Conducting a hot house when everyone is co-located, everybody is in a room, is very different when everyone was on, kind of operating remotely. I'm talking about bringing together business people, architecture, security, engineers, infrastructure people, outsourced vendors, partners, bring everybody together. I think, we did a great job in using Jira to break down of the list of tasks which we want to achieve out of the hot house. We did all the great work. So the technology of using Jira really helped us to move. But what we learned was when people are remotely, people tend to go on mute for most of the time. And the hot house wasn't, even though we got everything ready with the tools we had, we were not able to get the people to generally talk a little bit more. It's quite interesting because the people who used to be contributing more when they are in the room seem to be rather, very quiet, going on mute. So it's almost like a difficult challenge. I think what we learned over a period of time is, in a situation like this, maybe you need to do a kind of a pre-work to the actual work you are doing. Get all the people lined up, make it clear, ring the few people up, and then make sure that what is expected, what we are trying to achieve, and kind of encourage them to play their normal role when they come into the world. So that's the biggest, any big thing which we want to do. I have learned that I always need to do a pre-work in ringing a number of people, talk to them, and then bring them up to the room, in the virtual room, if you like. So
Krishna, that's great, because what I want to do is jump now to the Q&A session, because we did have one question, as Radu mentioned, that came up around, so you've got the follower mindset in terms of, you've got other organizations around you behaving in an agile way and coming to the market much quicker with products and services and innovation, etc. How do we do that differently? Where is the innovation, ideation coming from? Because that's a key, again, one of those key features behind Agile is how do we bring that ideation and that innovation from our organization, from our workforce, and from externally, from our customers and partners. I don't know, Radu, if you've had any thoughts about that, because obviously with the changes you've been involved with, what do you think about that question around where's the innovation in all of this, and where's the disruptor?
Yeah, that's one of the very, very difficult ones, because there's no process for this. I think what I've seen in many years is that the CIO is usually immediately associated with innovation, and in many organizations is tasked with that. It is there in the vicinity of CIO, CDO, CTO that the expectation is that the innovation happens. However, this is probably much more natural to occur where the transformation happens. So when your sales force is transformed, when your HR is transformed, when that's where the ideas come. That's where the new thinking is coming. When you have those people talking to clients with new heads, with new ideas, with new mindset, that's where I think a lot of innovation needs to come. And then I think it's very important on what do you do with it. You need to probably move more with a digital organization from the command and control and top-down hierarchy to ways that harness, identify opportunities, and then make innovation bets. Not everything is going to succeed, but you have to first listen, identify those. There's tons of them probably, but you don't want them to go silent. So it needs to be a conscious effort to do this, because it by itself usually happens more in startups than in big organizations that have to do monthly plan and yearly numbers. Yeah, no,
I think, Radu, coming back to what I said at the very beginning, I mean, we had a great earlier this week we had the recording, the presentation from Bank of England of how they've taken on board agility and how they're driving transformation and bringing new ideas into a very old prestigious organization within the UK. I'm going to sort of come to Laura now, because I think Laura has been at the very sharp end, I think, in the fintech space. Where, as you say, you mentioned earlier about the sort of the digital and how it gets quite geeky. But I mean, how's it been going back to the panelist question, the audience question about digital innovation and disruption? How have you seen that come through in your organization, Laura, that digital innovation and disruption?
Yes, so I would say I've had a quarter of my year spent with standing up a centre of excellence that merges innovative tech like automation, like chatbots, along with Lean and Six Sigma. And I see now in the market in general, open innovation is about bringing ideas in from outside. So there's always a need to keep your eye on the market, keep doing external research. I personally read a lot of government reports that talk about the some of the risks involved with all of these algorithms that we're building in general, and the key need to be able to assess bias and unconscious bias in them. So, you know, there is a lot of reports that have been done about this. Cognizant, for example, a couple of years ago wrote reports about potential roles of the future. And some of them, because of these reports that I'm reading, I think they're going to come to the fore more and more in the next couple of years. Roles like algorithm bias auditors, for example, that look across an enterprise at the algorithms that have been written and look for potential bias in them, also in line with the proliferation of chatbots. And then there's also roles like a machine risk officer. This is somebody that will look at the potential for inherent risk of a machine carrying out that process solely. So it's a question of always looking externally outside of your expertise. And particularly when I think about my remit of automation, there is a concept called citizen developers now, and everybody's got very excited about it. But it is, you need to have the right skills mapping in place. You need to have the right capability in place for that to become realized. That the PMI are writing, Project Management Institute are writing a course on this at the moment. And it's making sure that the employees, you know, everybody wants to add value, but it's making sure that they're set up for success. And if anybody's not clear, Citizen Developer proposes that everybody will have a bot on the desktop in the future, which, you know, could be possible because the automation software has really developed exponentially, and you can pull workflows around now that you couldn't previously. You would have had to know, I don't know, Java, Python, C#, and it's all becoming a lot easier to manage. But firstly, there needs to be the capability there, and also there needs to be the interest. I was listening to a lady speak the other night about women's role in technology, and she was saying even if people are passionate and interested, the technology that you're using needs to appeal to them. If they can't use it in the day-to-day, if they can't deploy it, if they can't manage it, then you're not going to get very far. So it's that capability and managing that interest to be able to adopt a lot of innovation and become a potential disruptor.
Yeah, and I actually, Laura, I mean, we're going to have to come to a close now because we're coming to the close of the hour. But I think you actually pick on a great thing, and particularly you mentioned about bias. There's been a lot of discussion around bias in there, and you know, from what technology can, prevent and also generate in terms of bias. And I think diversity and inclusion, coming back to the question from the audience around disruptors and innovation, is having that diversity and inclusion in your own organization and within your ecosystem that allows you to be an innovative and disruptor as well. What I'm going to do now is we're coming close to the end of the session, and I'm going to thank the speakers for their time and their insight and their discussion. I'm going to quickly just give you a sort of 30-second blast now to sort of give us your closing thoughts as we come to the end of the year, and potentially one or two things. Is there anything you've seen from this year, or also just thinking about anything, your big bets for next year in terms of agile, agility, and technology. So Radu, any closing comments quickly on agility and agile and big bets for 2021?
Thanks, and I appreciate the invitation, and the conversation has been really great. Our big bet is data. For as a closing remark, I would say, situation normal, everything must change. The only difference now is on steroids, and sometimes it gets crazy. You have teams, and the human factor is so important. If you have the right team with the right talent, and you listen and you talk, and you are fully using the team and harnessing people potential, it's really possible.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Radu. Laura, coming back to you quickly, any sort of last points and comments or any sort of big bets for 2021?
Yes, well, I kind of left automation off the list because it's a given for me, but that will continue to proliferate. One of the reports I read were at 73% of global organizations are now implementing it this year. I think even if you're a laggard, there are still things that you can add from all the lessons that have been learned for the last, well, actively 5 years now. You can add to what you could bring to the market through implementing automation. And the other key thing that I've been talking about, because of this proliferation Gartner also wrote about the fact that the role of the CIO will be changing in their view, and that they will be held accountable for business operational results going forwards. And I think because of that, all of these process benchmarking, these process analysis, process mining tools will become more and more key, because organizations will need to, and the CIOs will need to have that transparency, because they will be accountable for it. So it's process analysis tools and automation that will continue.
Brilliant. No, thanks, Laura. And yeah, I mean, Radu mentioned earlier about CIOs and CTOs, and I think this was a hot topic. And accountability is there's an interesting word, and I'm going to come back to Krishnan because of regulation as well. But Krishnan, one last closing comment in terms of where do you think 2021 is going to get us, and what might your big bets be for 2021?
Yeah, I'm very conscious of the time here, Derek, so I'll keep it very short and simple. I think I'll be betting on, my big bets will be on two things. Data is the new oil. We might have heard it multiple different places. So gaining, insights from the data which we have within the organization is going to be one of the big things that's going to make a difference to lots and lots of organization. Don't look outside for success, look inside for success, which is a lot will be present within the organization in terms of data. And the other big bet I'm going to make is on the gaming headset, which Radu mentioned, because I was actually looking for a headset, but I thought gaming headsets are not for headsets for attending conference. Now I've learned something useful. Probably I will make some big bets on one of the gaming headsets from the internet platforms. Yeah.
Yeah, I never thought I'd be running where we're actually making investment advice to the audience. So I greatly appreciate you that. Thanks very much for that. And look, everyone, thank you very much for the time today. Greatly appreciate it, everyone on the call. And thank you for my speakers, Krishnan, Laura, Radu. Greatly appreciate your time.